Hello, Dharma friends. So happy you can join me today. Let's begin by placing our palms together in Gasho. When the one thought moment of joy arises, nirvana is attained without severing blind passions. When the ignorant and wise, even grave offenders and slanderers of the Dharma, all alike turn about and enter Shinjin, they are like waters that, on entering the ocean, become one in taste with it. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandals, 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 Namandals. So, Dharma friends, I'm very happy to be with you today. We're still in winter time here in Arizona, but nevertheless, each time this year, I tend to start thinking a lot about my favorite place to go. And my favorite place in all the world is the ocean. I absolutely love going to the beach. And it may be because I start thinking about it during this time of year due to the fact that it's winter, or maybe spring is just on the horizon and I'm thinking about warmer weather. Quite frankly, it could also be the fact that I was born and raised in a desert, that I tend to think about water and blue space and immersing myself into that ocean. It's just so refreshing, and my mental well-being, my heart sings with joy. Everything is just so much better anytime I'm near the sea. And one of the things I got to share with you that really kind of hooked me into Jodo Shinshu is how often Shinron Shonin would reference the ocean in his writings, and he talks about the ocean quite a bit. So, I want to actually, share a few more of his sayings with you. So bear with me. Let me pull that up. So for Shinron, he had many other references to the ocean. So let's just read a few of them together. Such as, the ocean of the Tathagata's wisdom is deep and vast and without limit or bottom. With my self-power overturned, I have entered the ocean of the selected vow. When I consider the ocean of the one vehicle of the primal vow, I see it is the teaching that is perfect, complete, instantaneous, unhindered, absolute, and incomparable. Finally, the vow causes beings to flow into the ocean of the vow. It brings one to ride on the ship of all-knowing wisdom, so that one sails out into the ocean of beings. Shinron's very eloquent, and these are just 4 examples of when he references the ocean in his writings. In fact, he actually, references it, many, many times. I've lost count of how many times, but the ocean was really important to Shinron, and it could be because he lived on an island nation surrounded by the great vast sea, the Sea of Japan on one side and the Great Pacific on the other side. And so he probably recognized the fact that he lived on an island, and to him, the ocean was large and vast, and yet he still appreciated how amazing it was. So it seems quite natural that he would also reference the ocean when he was thinking about Amida Buddha's primal vow, the vow to save all beings, regardless of how perfect or imperfect that they are. Thinking about how the vow embraces them like the ocean embraces you when it enter the waters, and then makes you feel complete and whole and a part of it. So at the beginning of this message, I actually shared these words from Shinron, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about them. So again, these words go like this. When the one thought moment of joy arises, nirvana is attained without severing blind passions. When the ignorant and wise, even grave offenders and slanderers of the Dharma, all like turn about and enter Shinjin, they are like waters that, on entering the ocean, become one in taste with it. This is a really powerful statement, and this actually comes from Shoshinge that Shinron composed. So when we think about the one thought moment of joy, that is nothing but Shinjin, realizing that the vow that Amida Buddha created to save all beings, regardless of how perfect or imperfect they are, embraces everyone. And when we come to understand that and feel that in our hearts, that is that one thought moment of joy. That is the point where we know we will be born in Amida Buddha's Pure Land. And the second line of this, nirvana, attained without severing blind passions, means the fact that we can continue to be human beings just as we are, just as perfect and imperfect as we are, even though we may make mistakes. It means the fact that we do not need to sever our blind passions. In fact, that's just something that we can't do as regular human beings. From the moment that we're born to the moment we take our last breath, we are always, always tied to our blind passions. Nevertheless, Amida saves us all. And that is affirmed in the third line, where it talks about the ignorant and the wise, or even those people who may slander the Dharma. When we come to realize that we are incapable of any practice in this life to lead us into nirvana, and we turn about and enter Shinjin, that one thought moment of joy, we know that we'll be born in the Pure Land. And the final line talks about that. It's like waters that when we enter the ocean become one in taste with it. So think about outside of the ocean, we have rivers and streams in our world, right? And those rivers and streams all flow towards the ocean. It's almost like the ocean is calling them to it. And there are streams that are calm, there are rivers that are rapid, there are waters that are muddy and murky inland. There's so many different kinds, and this speaks to the diversity of each one of us. So no matter how we are, what our own internal water is like, when we flow into the ocean, the water is clean and we become one in taste with that. And in fact, water's inland, it's fresh water, but when we enter the ocean, we all become salty, right? We become just like the ocean itself. So to me, these lines from Shoshin-ge are incredibly important, and it makes me reflect on my life and how I am as a human being. And I am guaranteed, and I know, however I enter that ocean at the end of my life to become a Buddha in Amida's Pure Land, I become one in taste with all Buddhists, that great oneness that all of us strive for. And yet we realize there's nothing we need to do on our end to enter that ocean. So there is another quote I'd like to share with you. And this quote also comes from a great human being. But it's not from Shinron. This is someone probably we've all heard of, someone that was alive during many of our lifetimes, someone that we know as a former president of the United States. And this is John F. Kennedy. And for those of you who do not know John F. Kennedy well and his background before becoming the president, he's very much tied to the sea, tied to the ocean. He spent his youth on sailboats. He entered the Navy as a young man. In fact, he served in the Pacific during World War II. And even though his ship sank and he had to swim in the great vast ocean, it did not dissuade him from still developing a strong love for the sea. And so back in 1962, he was giving a speech to a group of people who were sailors. And when I ran across this quote many, many years ago, it touched me almost as deeply as Shinron's words about the ocean. And here's his quote. "We all came from the sea. And it is an interesting biological fact that all of us have in our veins the exact same percentage of salt in our blood that exists in the ocean. And therefore, we have salt in our blood, in our sweat, in our tears. We are tied to the ocean. And when we go back to the sea, whether it is to sail or to watch it, we are going back from whence we came." This was so eloquent, and it makes me wonder if maybe President Kennedy had encountered Shinron's words about the ocean. This idea that at one point in time, we began in the sea, the great oneness of it. We live our lives, yet we're still tied to it in some way, shape, or form. But how often do we think about our blood chemistry and recognize that the salt in our blood matches the same salt level in the ocean? And yet we are called back to the ocean time and time again, because it's just something that seems so natural to us. And when I compare this to Shinron's writings in the Vow of Amida Buddha, it makes me think about how the vow, the ocean-like vow of Amida calls all of us to return to the Pure Land and become Buddhas. So thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I look forward to joining you in the great ocean of oneness one day. Would you please put your hands together and join me once again in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nam Mandals, Nam Mandals, Nam Mandals, Nam Mandals, Nam Mandals. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.